The massive crystal ship floated in the darkness between stars. Its name was Dominion's Edge, and it was the most powerful warship in the Zenthari Empire. Inside its gleaming halls, 7 different alien species worked together as one mighty force. They had conquered 43 worlds in the last century alone. Admiral Kextar stood before a wall of glowing screens. His blue skin had dark lines running down his face, marking him as a high-ranking Zenthari warrior. His forearms moved quickly across the control panels as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The target was a small blue planet in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. The humans called it Earth. "Show me the weapons data again," Kextar commanded. The screens filled with images of human military hardware. Tanks rolled across desert landscapes, their cannons firing shells that exploded in bright flashes. Fighter jets screamed through cloudy skies, dropping bombs on practice targets. Submarines launched missiles that broke the surface of dark oceans before flying toward distant mountains. Commander Velosh, a tall alien with silver skin and no visible eyes, stepped closer to the screens. She belonged to the Velthari species, known for their careful thinking and strategic planning. "The humans have developed kinetic weapons," she said in her soft voice. "Bullets, shells, explosives, all primitive by our standards." "Primitive, indeed," laughed General Zorth, a massive creature covered in thick green scales. His species, the Krexani, were famous for their strength and aggressive nature. Their fastest projectiles barely reach 3 kilometers per second. Our shields can stop asteroids moving at half the speed of light. Kextar nodded and switched to another screen. This one showed footage of a human weapon test. A bright flash filled the display, followed by a mushroom-shaped cloud rising into the sky. "They have discovered atomic weapons," he said. "Nuclear fusion and fission bombs." The War Council members exchanged glances. Dr. Nithara, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation, stepped forward. Her people were the scientists and engineers of the Empire. "Interesting," she said, her voice sounding like wind chimes. "But still centuries behind our plasma technology. Our energy shields absorb all forms of radiation." "What about their space capabilities?" asked Captain Mordek, whose species had wings instead of arms and eyes, like those of an eagle. Kextar showed them images of human spacecraft. Rockets carried small capsules beyond their planet's atmosphere. Space stations orbited the blue world like tiny metal insects. "Limited," he said. "They have barely left their home system. No faster-than-light travel, no energy weapons, no defensive shields." Commander Velosh studied the data more carefully than the others. Something felt wrong to her, though she could not name what it was. "Admiral," she said slowly, "perhaps we should observe them longer. Study their behavior patterns. These humans seem different from our previous targets." General Zorth's laugh boomed through the crystal chamber. "Different how? They fight with metal slugs and chemical explosives. They are probably afraid of loud noises." "Look at their planet," Velosh insisted. She pointed to a screen showing Earth from space. "See how they have covered almost every landmass with their cities and roads. See how many of them there are. Over 7 billion individuals. Most species we encounter have populations in the millions." "More slaves for the Empire," Zorth said with a grin that showed his sharp teeth. But Velosh continued. "Notice their communication networks. Radio waves, satellites, something they call the internet. They share information instantly across their entire world. Every human can speak to any other human within seconds." Admiral Kextar frowned. This was true, and it was unusual. Most planets they conquered had scattered tribes or nations that barely communicated with each other. It made invasion much easier when the population could not coordinate their defense. "They also reproduce at an exceptional rate," added Dr. Nithara, reviewing biological data. "And they dedicate enormous resources to caring for their young. Most species abandon weak offspring, but humans protect their children above all else." "Weakness," declared General Zorth. "Emotional attachments make species soft and easy to defeat." Kextar had heard enough discussion. As the fleet admiral, The final decision was his to make. The humans possess no technology that can threaten our ships, he said firmly. Their kinetic weapons cannot penetrate our energy shields. Their nuclear weapons are too slow and too weak. Their space fleet consists of unarmed research vessels, he gestured toward the main screen, which now showed the full Zenthari invasion fleet. 200 massive warships floated in perfect formation. Each one was larger than the biggest human city. Their hulls gleamed with the silver-blue metal that could withstand the heat of a star's surface. We have conquered worlds with far more advanced technology, Kextar continued. The Mortai had energy weapons that could crack moons. The Hyvron could manipulate gravity itself. The crystal beings of Nexus Prime could exist in pure energy form, yet all of them fell to our superior firepower and tactics. The other commanders nodded in agreement. It was true. The Zenthari Empire had never failed to conquer a world once they set their sights on it. Their energy shields were perfect defenses. Their plasma cannons could melt mountains. Their bioadaptive armor could protect against any known weapon. But Admiral, Velosh tried one more time. Something about the human communication pattern suggests... Enough. Kextar cut her off. I have made my decision. We attack Earth in 72 hours. Standard invasion protocol. Demonstrate our power. Demand surrender. Begin resource extraction. The humans will submit just like all the others. The War Council dispersed to prepare their forces. General Zorth went to ready his ground troops. Dr. Nithara returned to her laboratories to calibrate the shield generators. Captain Mordek flew off to organize the fighter squadrons. Only Commander Velosh remained in the crystal chamber, staring at the screens that still showed images of Earth. Something in the human cities troubled her. In every photo she could see small figures scattered throughout the streets and buildings. Human children playing in parks, walking to schools, laughing in groups. She had studied 43 conquered worlds, and she had never seen anything quite like it. Most intelligent species kept their young hidden during times of danger, but human children seemed to be everywhere, completely visible as if their parents felt no fear for their safety. Velosh touched her control pad and zoomed in on one of the human cities. The image focused on a playground where dozens of small humans ran and played together. They seemed so connected. When one child fell and scraped their knee, 3 others immediately ran to help. When a ball rolled away, 5 children chased after it together. She switched to another city, then another. The pattern was the same everywhere. Human children moved in groups, shared their toys, comforted each other when upset. And strangest of all, they did not seem to fear the unknown. In many images, children pointed at the sky with wonder, as if they were excited about what might come from the stars. Velosh saved all the data to her personal files. Perhaps she was worried about nothing. Perhaps these humans would surrender as quickly as every other species when they saw the might of the Zenthari fleet. But deep in her mind, a small voice whispered a warning. These humans were different. And different could be dangerous in ways that energy shields and plasma cannons might not be able to handle. The invasion fleet began its final preparations for the jump to Earth. The Zenthari fleet appeared in Earth's solar system, like a storm cloud blotting out the sun. 200 massive ships materialized from faster-than-light travel, their hulls reflecting the light of the distant star. Each vessel was the size of Manhattan, bristling with weapons that could level entire continents. Admiral Kexitar stood on the bridge of Dominion's edge, watching the blue planet grow larger on his screens. Earth looked so peaceful from space, with its white clouds swirling over green and brown continents. Soon those continents would belong to the Zenthari Empire. All ships report ready, announced his communications officer, a thin alien with purple skin and 3 eyes. Shield generators at full power, plasma cannons charged and targeted. Excellent, Kextar replied. Begin standard first contact protocol. Broadcast our demands on all human communication frequencies. The message that went out to Earth was the same one the Zenthari had used on dozens of worlds. It was simple and direct. Surrender completely, submit to imperial rule, and perhaps some of your species will be allowed to survive as slaves. Resist, and your planet will be reduced to ash and radioactive dust. On Earth, the message was received by every government, every military base, every television and radio station. Panic spread through the human leadership. Emergency meetings were called in every capital city. Military forces were put on high alert, though everyone knew their weapons were useless against such advanced technology. Kextar expected the usual response. First would come desperate attempts at communication, pleas for mercy, offers of tribute, requests for more time. Then would come the futile attacks, as the humans tried their primitive weapons against Zenthari shields. Finally, after seeing their best efforts fail completely, the human leaders would surrender to save what remained of their population. But the response that came was nothing like what the Admiral expected. It began on every communication channel simultaneously. Television broadcasts, radio stations, internet streams, satellite transmissions, every human communication device on the planet started carrying the same signal at exactly the same moment. The Zenthari communications team scrambled to understand how such coordination was possible with Earth's primitive technology. The message did not come from presidents or generals or any adult leaders. Instead, the screens filled with the faces of human children. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, all speaking in perfect unison, despite being located in different cities, different countries, different continents. A small girl with dark hair and bright eyes spoke in English. At the same moment, a boy with red hair spoke the same words in Spanish. Another child with blonde braids said the identical phrase in Mandarin Chinese. All across Earth, human children were delivering the same message in dozens of different languages, their words perfectly synchronized as if they were a single being with thousands of voices. "Hello, visitors from the stars," the children said, their young voices somehow reaching every Zenthari ship simultaneously. "We know you have come to conquer our world. We know you believe your weapons and shields make you stronger than us. We know you think we are primitive and helpless." Admiral Kextar frowned at his screens. How were these human offspring able to broadcast directly to his fleet? Their technology should not have been capable of reaching his ships through the Zenthari communication barriers. The children continued speaking, still in perfect unison across all languages. "Our parents and leaders will surrender to you soon because they love us and want to protect us. They believe that surrender is the only way to keep us safe. They are probably right." General Zorth, who had come to the bridge to watch the conquest, laughed loudly. "Even their younglings understand they cannot resist us. This will be easier than I thought." But the children were not finished. A boy who looked no older than 8 years smiled directly into the camera and spoke words that made the entire Zenthari command staff feel a strange chill. "You should have stayed home." The transmission ended. Every screen went dark. Every communication channel fell silent. For several minutes, the Zenthari fleet waited for the real response from human leaders. Surely the adults would now make contact, begging for mercy or trying to negotiate terms. Children were not capable of making decisions for an entire species. When no other messages came, Admiral Kextar decided to demonstrate Zenthari power more directly. "Target 3 of their military installations," he ordered. "Show them what happens to those who speak disrespectfully to the Empire." 3 plasma beams lanced down from the invasion fleet. Each beam was hot enough to melt steel in milliseconds. The first struck a human Air Force base in the middle of a desert, turning buildings and aircraft into puddles of molten metal. The second hit a naval port, vaporizing ships and docks in brilliant explosions. The third beam destroyed a mountain bunker where human leaders had thought they could hide from orbital bombardment. The demonstrations had their intended effect. Within 2 hours, every major human government broadcast messages of complete surrender. Presidents, prime ministers, kings, and queens all spoke the same words. They submitted to Zenthari rule without condition. They would cooperate fully with Indidasior. All demands. They begged only for mercy toward their civilian populations, especially their children. "Excellent," Admiral Kextar said with satisfaction. "Deploy the occupation forces. Begin resource extraction immediately. Establish administrative centers in their major cities. Round up their scientific and technical personnel for interrogation. The conquest of Earth proceeded exactly according to Zinthari protocol. Human military forces laid down their weapons without firing a shot. Government officials handed over all administrative control to Zinthari commanders. Industrial facilities were marked for dismantling and transport to Imperial worlds. Yet something felt different about this conquest. As General Zorth's troops landed in human cities, they found the strangest sight any of them had ever encountered during an invasion. The human children were not hiding. On every world the Zinthari had conquered, the young ones of the species were the first to be hidden away. Parents desperately tried to protect their offspring from the invading forces. Children cowered in basements and caves and secret hiding places. But on Earth, human children continued playing in their parks and walking to their schools as if nothing had changed. They watched the Zinthari soldiers with bright, curious eyes. They pointed at the alien aircraft flying overhead and seemed excited rather than frightened. When Zinthari troops set up checkpoints on human streets, children would approach them without fear. The young humans asked questions in their simple language. Where do you come from? And how do your ships fly so fast? And why do you have 4 arms? General Zorth found the behavior disturbing. These human younglings show no proper fear, he reported to Admiral Kextar. They act as if we are visitors rather than conquerors. Their parents have probably told them to be friendly to avoid punishment, the Admiral replied. Pay them no attention. Focus on the resource extraction quotas. But privately, Kextar felt the same unease that was growing among his troops. In 43 previous conquests, they had never encountered anything like this. Human children seemed genuinely happy to see the Zinthari forces. They waved at alien aircraft and tried to communicate with soldiers who could not understand their language. Most disturbing of all, the children seemed to move in patterns, not obviously, not in ways that appeared military or organized. But if a Zinthari observer watched carefully, they could see that human children in different parts of a city often did the same things at the same time. When one group started playing a particular game, children kilometers away would begin playing the same game within minutes. Commander Velosh, monitoring the occupation from orbit, noticed these patterns more clearly than anyone else. Her species was trained to spot subtle behavioral abnormalities that might indicate resistance planning. Admiral, she reported during the daily briefing, I recommend increased surveillance of human children. Their behavior patterns suggest possible coordination. Coordination? Kextar laughed. They are infants. What could they possibly coordinate? Velosh pulled up data streams from cities around Earth. Watch this footage from Tokyo, Beijing, London, and New York, all recorded at the same time yesterday. The screens showed playgrounds in 4 different cities, each thousands of kilometers from the others. In Tokyo, a group of children started building something in a sandbox. In Beijing, children began the same construction project at the exact same moment. In London and New York, more children built identical structures in their playgrounds. Coincidence? Declared General Zorth. Young creatures often have similar play behaviors. But Velosh zoomed in on the structures the children were building. Each one was a perfect miniature model of a Zinthari warship, complete with accurate details that should have been impossible for human children to know. The models even included the locations of shield generators and weapon systems that were not visible from outside the ships. Admiral Kextar stared at the screens in silence. For the first time since arriving at Earth, he felt a small seed of doubt growing in his mind. But surely children could not threaten the most powerful military force in the galaxy, could they? 6 months had passed since the Zinthari Empire took control of Earth. Admiral Kextar reviewed the occupation reports from his command center aboard Dominion's Edge. By every standard measurement, the conquest was proceeding perfectly. Human governments had handed over complete administrative control without resistance. Industrial facilities were being dismantled and shipped to Imperial worlds ahead of schedule. Mining operations had begun extracting Earth's metals and rare elements. The human population remained docile and cooperative. Resource extraction is exceeding projections by 12%, reported Dr. Nithara, her crystal body gleaming under the bridge lights. Human industrial knowledge is more advanced than our initial estimates suggested. Their manufacturing techniques will be valuable additions to Imperial technology. General Zorth nodded approvingly from his position near the tactical displays. Human workers are surprisingly efficient when properly motivated. They seem to understand that cooperation ensures their survival. What about resistance activities? Asked Admiral Kextar. None detected, replied Commander Velosh, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. No organized military opposition, no guerrilla attacks, no sabotage of Imperial facilities. The humans appear to have accepted their new situation completely. Kextar felt satisfied with these reports, but he also noticed the hesitation in Velosh's tone. You sound uncertain, Commander. Is there something specific that concerns you? Velosh called up several data streams on the main screens. There are small irregularities in the reports, nothing that violates Imperial protocols, but patterns that seem unusual compared to our previous conquests. The first screen showed population tracking data from major human cities. We have detected a consistent rate of missing persons across all occupied territories. Approximately 3 individuals per 1,000 disappear from our monitoring systems. Each week, humans fleeing to remote areas to avoid Imperial work assignments, suggested General Zorth. Normal behavior for a newly conquered species. Perhaps, Velosh agreed, but the pattern is unusual. The missing persons are never important leaders or skilled technicians that we specifically need to track. They are always ordinary citizens, teachers, shopkeepers, parents, and there is no evidence they are fleeing anywhere. They simply vanish from our surveillance systems. She switched to another screen showing resource shipment records. We are also seeing minor discrepancies in material transfers. Nothing significant enough to impact quotas, but consistent shortages of approximately 2 to 3% across all categories. Admiral Kextar frowned. Are human workers stealing Imperial resources? That was my initial assumption, Velosh replied, but our security sweeps find no evidence of hidden stockpiles. The materials simply disappear during transport, with no clear explanation of where they go. Dr. Nithara examined the data more carefully. Could this be simple measurement errors in their primitive accounting systems? Possible, admitted Velosh, but the errors follow mathematical patterns that suggest deliberate coordination rather than random mistakes. General Zorth waved a massive scaled hand dismissively. Minor administrative irregularities, nothing that threatens Imperial control. What matters is that the humans continue to obey our orders and meet their production quotas. But Velosh had more data to show. There is one other pattern that I find disturbing. She hesitated, knowing how the others would react to her next words. It involves the human children. The bridge fell silent. All the senior officers had noticed the strange behavior of human offspring during the occupation. It was impossible to ignore, though none of them wanted to admit that children could be cause for concern. Go ahead, Commander, said Admiral Kextar. Velosh displayed footage from multiple human cities, all recorded simultaneously. This was taken yesterday at 14:30 local time in each location. Watch the behavior patterns. The screen showed children in dozens of different locations across Earth. In playgrounds, schools, parks, and streets, human offspring were engaged in what appeared to be normal childhood activities. But as the officers watched more carefully, they began to see what Velosh had noticed. In São Paulo, Brazil, a group of children stopped playing football and looked toward the sky at exactly 14:30. In Mumbai, India, children in a schoolyard did the same thing at the same moment. In Cairo, Egypt, children walking with their parents suddenly paused and tilted their heads upward. In Stockholm, Sweden, children ice skating on a frozen pond came to a complete stop and gazed at the clouds above them. Across dozens of cities on every continent, thousands of human children performed the identical action at precisely the same time. Coincidence, declared General Zorth, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. Velosh advanced the footage by 30 seconds. Now the children in every location were moving again, but they all moved in exactly the same way. They turned, their heads to the left, then to the right, as if looking for something. Then they smiled, the same bright, innocent smile on every young face across the planet. This behavior occurs multiple times every day, Velosh reported. Different actions, but always perfectly synchronized across all human children regardless of their location or time zone. Dr. Nithara studied the data with growing fascination. Remarkable, this level of coordination suggests some form of instantaneous communication network, but our scans detect no electronic signals or technological devices that could enable such connectivity. Perhaps it is instinctive behavior, suggested Admiral Kekstar. Some species have natural hive mind tendencies that emerge during times of stress. If that were the case, Velosh replied, we should see similar patterns in human adults. But adult human behavior shows no such synchronization. This phenomenon appears to be limited to children under approximately 12 Earth years of age. General Zorth accessed his personal reports from ground commanders. My troops have mentioned this as well. Human younglings often approach our soldiers with questions, but they ask identical questions using nearly identical words. Yesterday, children in 15 different cities asked our personnel, how many stars can you see from your home planet? Cultural exchange, said Dr. Nithara. Children are naturally curious about alien visitors. But how do children in cities, thousands of kilometers apart, learn to ask the exact same questions? Velosh pressed. Human communication technology requires electronic devices, but these children carry no such equipment when they approach our forces. Admiral Kekstar felt a familiar uneasiness growing in his mind. The same instinct that had helped him survive dozens of military campaigns was now warning him about something he could not quite identify. Commander Velosh, he said slowly, what is your professional assessment of these irregularities? Velosh chose her words carefully. Sir, in my experience studying conquered populations, resistance movements typically begin with small coordinated actions. Missing persons who might be gathering intelligence, resource theft to fund opposition activities, communication networks that allow scattered groups to work together. She paused, looking directly at the Admiral. What concerns me is that if these patterns represent the beginning of a resistance movement, it would be unlike anything we have encountered before. The coordination is too perfect, too subtle, and too widespread. And if human children are somehow at the center of it, she did not finish the sentence, but everyone on the bridge understood her implication. Children cannot threaten military forces, declared General Zorth firmly. They have no weapons, no training, no ability to damage Imperial assets. Of course not, agreed Admiral Kekstar. But privately, he remembered something Commander Velosh had said during their initial intelligence briefing. These humans seem different from our previous targets. Perhaps they were more different than anyone had realized. Continue monitoring all human activities, he ordered. Increase surveillance on the children specifically. I want daily reports on any unusual behavior patterns. Yes, sir, replied Velosh. As the bridge crew returned to their duties, none of them noticed the small detail that might have alarmed them most. At the exact moment Admiral Kekstar gave his order to increase surveillance, every human child on the planet, from the frozen cities of Alaska to the tropical villages of Indonesia, turned to look up at the sky and smiled. The occupation continued, according to Imperial protocol. But deep beneath the surface of normal activities, something was stirring, something that had been watching, learning, and preparing for 6 long months. Something that no amount of energy shields or plasma cannons had been designed to stop. Dr. Zekimar had always prided himself on his scientific objectivity. As the lead xenobiologist aboard Dominion's Edge, he approached every new species with careful analysis and methodical study. But his current assignment was making him question everything he thought he understood about intelligent life. The Zenthari High Command had ordered him to conduct detailed neural scans of human subjects. The goal was to optimize slave labor programs by understanding how human brains processed information and responded to commands. It was standard procedure for conquered species, and Dr. Zekimar had performed similar studies on dozens of alien populations, but humans were proving to be unlike anything in his extensive database. Subject 247 is prepared for scanning, announced His assistant, a young Xanthari technician with pale blue skin and 6 arms. The human test subject was a male adult, approximately 30 Earth years old, who had been randomly selected from a work detail in the city humans called London. Dr. Zekmar activated the neural scanner, a device that could read brain patterns from a distance without causing harm to the subject. Immediately, the screens filled with complex wave patterns showing human neural activity. "Fascinating," he murmured, studying the data. Human brains are remarkably similar to Xanthari neural structures, but with significantly more activity in the emotional processing centers. And look at these memory pathways, far more complex than most species we've encountered. The scan continued for 30 minutes, recording every aspect of the human's brain function. Dr. Zekmar was particularly interested in the areas that controlled language, learning, and social behavior. Understanding these systems would help the Empire design more effective control methods. "Bring in the next subject," he ordered. Subject 248 was a human female, approximately 25 years old, selected from a different work crew. Dr. Zekmar expected to see similar neural patterns, with minor individual variations. Instead, his scanning equipment detected something that made him check his instruments twice. "Technician, are you certain the scanner is functioning properly?" "Yes, sir. All systems show normal operation." Dr. Zekmar stared at his screens in confusion. The human female's brain patterns were identical to the male's patterns. Not similar, identical. Every neural pathway, every memory formation, every thought process matched exactly. "This cannot be correct," he muttered. "No two individuals of any species have identical brain patterns. Run a complete diagnostic on all equipment." The diagnostic confirmed that every instrument was working perfectly. Dr. Zekmar ran the scans again, but the results were the same. 2 completely different humans showed identical neural activity. Over the next week, Dr. Zekmar scanned 50 more human adults from cities around the globe. The results were consistent and impossible. Every adult human brain he examined showed the same basic patterns, with only minor variations in memory content and personality traits. It was as if every human adult on the planet shared the same fundamental neural architecture. This level of uniformity should be impossible in a naturally evolved species, he reported to his research team. Unless humans were artificially created by some advanced civilization, there must be another explanation. His assistant suggested a different approach. "Sir, perhaps we should scan some human children. If this uniformity is natural, it should appear in their offspring as well." Dr. Zekmar agreed, though he expected the results would be the same. Human children were brought to his laboratory from schools in nearby London. The first subject was a girl who appeared to be approximately 8 years old. She showed no fear of the alien scientists, instead asking curious questions about their equipment in her simple human language. "What does that machine do?" she asked, pointing at the neural scanner. "Can it see inside my head? That's really cool." Dr. Zekmar activated the scanner and immediately realized he had discovered something that would change everything he thought he knew about humanity. The child's brain was not like those of the human adults. It was far more active, with neural pathways that seemed to extend beyond the physical boundaries of her skull. The scanner detected electrical activity that appeared to reach into empty space around her head. "Impossible," he breathed. "Increase scanner sensitivity to maximum levels." The enhanced scan revealed the truth that made Dr. Zekmar's blood turn cold. The human child's brain was connected to something outside of her body. Invisible energy patterns linked her consciousness to somewhere else. The scanner could detect the connections but could not trace them to their destination. "Bring in another child immediately," he ordered. The second child, a boy of approximately 10 years old, showed the same impossible neural patterns. His brain was clearly connected to the same external network as the girl's brain. But even more disturbing, when Dr. Zekmar compared their neural activity in real time, he discovered that both children's thoughts were synchronized. When the girl thought about a memory of playing with her friends, the boy's brain showed identical memory patterns at the same moment. When the boy wondered what the alien scientists were trying to learn, the girl's brain registered the same thoughts simultaneously. Dr. Zekmar scanned every human child he could find. Boys, girls, different ages, different cities, different languages. The results were consistent and terrifying. Every human child under approximately 12 years of age was connected to the same vast neural network. They were thinking together as one unified consciousness. Technician, Dr. Zekmar said in a shaking voice, scan for the total number of network connections. The scanner worked for several minutes, tracing energy patterns around the globe. When the results appeared on screen, Dr. Zekmar nearly fainted. The network included approximately 1.8 billion connected nodes. Every human child on the planet was part of a single shared consciousness that spanned continents and oceans. "Sir," his assistant said in alarm, "what does this mean for the occupation?" Dr. Zekmar realized the horrible implications immediately. For 6 months, the Zenthari Empire had been watched, studied, and analyzed by a connected intelligence network of nearly 2 billion young minds. Every conversation between Zenthari officers, every technical detail of their ships and weapons, every weakness in their defenses had been observed and shared instantaneously across the entire human child population. The Empire had not conquered Earth. They had been allowed to land so the children could learn everything about them. "We must contact Admiral Kekstar immediately," Dr. Zekmar said, reaching for his communication device. But when he activated the transmitter, no signal went out. The communication system showed full power and normal operation, but his message was not being transmitted to the fleet. "Try the emergency backup systems," he ordered his assistant. Every communication device in the laboratory was functioning perfectly, but none of them could send messages beyond the building. Something was blocking all outgoing transmissions. "Doctor." Zekmar looked at the human children who were still in his laboratory. The girl was drawing pictures with colored pencils, detailed diagrams of Zenthari ship designs that she should never have been able to see. The boy was building something with small blocks, a perfect miniature replica of the laboratory they were sitting in, complete with tiny figures representing the alien scientists. Both children looked up at Dr. Zekmar at exactly the same moment and smiled. Not the innocent smiles of young creatures at play, but knowing smiles that held the combined intelligence of nearly 2 billion connected minds. "Hello, Dr. Zekmar," they said in perfect unison, speaking his name in the Zenthari, language that no human child should have been able to understand. "Thank you for teaching us so much about your people." The scientist realized with absolute terror that humanity had never been conquered at all. The Zenthari fleet was trapped in orbit around a planet controlled by a vast intelligence network that had been studying them like insects under a microscope. And now that the children had learned everything they needed to know, Dr. Zekmar suspected that the real battle for Earth was about to begin. Outside the laboratory windows, he could see thousands of human children emerging from buildings across the city. They moved with perfect coordination, walking toward every Zenthari facility and soldier position. They were still smiling. Admiral Kekstar was reviewing orbital defense patterns when every communication system on his ship began screaming emergency alerts. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge of Dominion's Edge as reports flooded in from ground commanders throughout the fleet. "Admiral," called his communications officer, his 3 eyes wide with panic. "We're receiving distress signals from all surface installations. Something is happening to our troops on the planet." "Enemy attack?" Kekstar demanded, rushing to the tactical displays. "Are the humans finally mounting a resistance operation?" "No, sir, that's what makes no sense. There are no explosions, no weapons fire, no combat activity of any kind, but our soldiers are... they're..." The officer seemed unable to finish his sentence. Commander Velosh appeared on the bridge, her usually calm demeanor replaced by obvious alarm. "Admiral, you need to see the surface footage immediately," she said, activating the main screen. The display showed live video feeds from cities across Earth. In every location, human children were walking calmly through the streets toward Zenthari positions. They moved with perfect coordination, like a single organism with millions of parts. Some carried flowers, others held drawings they had made, and many simply walked with their empty hands extended as if offering hugs. "They're not attacking," General Zorth reported over the communication system, his voice strangely subdued. The human younglings are just approaching our people, but something is wrong with our soldiers when the children get near them. Admiral Kextar watched the feeds more carefully. In Tokyo, a small Japanese girl with pigtails walked up to a Zenthari soldier standing guard at a resource extraction facility. The massive alien warrior, trained for battle and armed with weapons that could level buildings, looked down at the tiny human child who barely reached his knee. The girl smiled up at him and gently placed her small hand on his armored. Like immediately, the Zenthari soldier dropped his weapon and fell to his knees. His forearms wrapped around himself as his body began shaking violently. Through his helmet's communication system, Admiral Kextar could hear sounds he had never heard from a Zenthari warrior before. Deep, gasping sobs. Similar scenes were playing out across every city on Earth. Wherever human children made physical contact with Zenthari troops, the alien soldiers collapsed as if they had been struck by some invisible weapon. Medical emergency on all ground teams, Dr. Nithara reported from the fleet's medical bay. I'm receiving biological readings from our surface personnel that make no sense. Their brain patterns are chaotic. Neural activity is off the charts, but there's no sign of injury or disease. Admiral Kextar activated his personal communication link to General Zorth, who was commanding ground forces from the occupation center in what humans called New York. General, report your status immediately. There was a long pause before Zorth's voice came through the speakers. But when he spoke, his words were barely recognizable. The proud, aggressive Krexani warrior sounded like a completely different being. Admiral, he said, his voice breaking with emotions that his species was not supposed to be capable of feeling. The children, they touched me, and I felt... Felt what, General? You're a trained soldier. Pull yourself together and report properly. I felt love, sir. The words came out as a whisper. Not romantic love, not the affection we feel for our own offspring. Something else. Something I don't have words for. Pure love. Innocent love. The love a child feels for their parent, for their friends, for the whole universe. All of it at once, flooding into my mind like a tsunami. Admiral, Kextar felt ice forming in his veins. That's impossible. The Krexani evolved to suppress emotional responses for survival purposes. Your brain cannot process such feelings. That's what I thought too, General Zorth replied, and now there were definitely tears in his voice. But these human children, they don't just feel love, Admiral. They are love. And when they share it with us, when they force us to experience what pure, unlimited affection feels like, our minds can't handle it. We're not built for this. More reports came in from across the planet. Zenthari soldiers, scientists, and administrators were collapsing wherever human children approached them. Some fell unconscious from the overwhelming emotional experience. Others stood motionless, tears streaming down their faces as they experienced feelings their species had evolved to suppress. A few tried to run, but their legs refused to carry them away from the children who offered nothing but innocent love. Doctor, Nithara's voice came over the medical communication channel, filled with scientific fascination and growing horror. Admiral, I'm analyzing the brain scans from affected personnel. The human children appear to be transmitting pure emotional energy directly into our soldiers' minds. It's not telepathy exactly, but something similar. They're sharing their feelings. Can our people resist this attack? Asked Admiral Kextar. It's not an attack in any traditional sense, Dr. Nithara explained. The children aren't trying to hurt our troops. They're trying to love them. And that love is so pure, so intense, so completely without reservation or condition, that it overwhelms every defense mechanism our brains have evolved. On the main screen, Admiral Kextar watched a scene that would haunt him for the rest of his life. A group of human children had surrounded a Zenthari officer, a cold, calculating member of the intelligence corps who had interrogated prisoners on a dozen conquered worlds without showing a trace of mercy. The children did not threaten him or demand anything from him. They simply took his hands in their small fingers and looked up at him with eyes full of wonder and trust and unconditional acceptance. The hardened intelligence officer, trained to resist every form of torture and psychological manipulation known to the galaxy, crumpled to the ground like a broken toy. His body shook as decades of suppressed emotions crashed over him like waves. For the first time in his adult life, he felt what it was like to be truly loved without condition, without fear, without expectation of anything in return. His mind, shaped by evolution and training to be cold and efficient, simply could not process the experience. He lay curled on the ground, sobbing like an infant, while the human children gently patted his head and whispered comforting words in their simple language. "All ground forces are compromised," Commander Velosh reported. "Every soldier who has been touched by human children is effectively incapacitated. They remain conscious but completely non-functional. Many are requesting immediate evacuation because they cannot bear the intensity of the emotions they're experiencing." Admiral Kextar realized that his mighty invasion fleet had been defeated by the one force in the universe they had never prepared to face. Pure, innocent love, given freely by beings too young to understand hatred or fear. "Recall all surface personnel immediately," he ordered. "Full retreat to orbital positions." But as the evacuation began, Admiral Kextar noticed something that made his defeat complete. The human children were not trying to stop Zenthari troops from leaving. Instead, they waved goodbye with bright smiles, calling out cheerful farewells in dozens of languages. Some children even blew kisses toward the alien ships lifting off from landing pads around the globe. The Zenthari Empire, which had conquered 43 worlds through superior firepower and advanced technology, was being gently but firmly ejected from Earth by an army of children whose only weapons were their capacity for love and their willingness to share it. As Dominion's Edge prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed and flee the solar system, Admiral Kexter received one final transmission from the planet's surface. It came through every communication channel simultaneously, just like the first message they had received upon arrival. Once again, it was the voices of human children, speaking in perfect unison across all languages. "Thank you for visiting our world. We learned so much from you. We hope someday you will learn to love the way we do. Maybe then you can come back and play with us instead of trying to conquer us. Until then, travel safely among the stars. We will remember you with love." Transmission ended with the sound of nearly 2 billion human children giggling with pure joy. Admiral Kextar looked out at the blue planet falling away behind his fleeing fleet and realized that humanity had achieved something no other species in galactic history had managed. They had won a war without fighting, conquered their conquerors without violence, and defended their world with nothing but the infinite capacity of children to love without condition. The Zenthari Empire would add a new entry to their database of dangerous species. Next to humans, Earth, they would write a warning that no future admiral would fully understand until it was too late. Extreme caution advised. Possesses weapons that no shield can deflect.